Hello, folks. This is Jeff Davis with the legendary Jeff Davis Show from Central Texas, USA. And I love Mike Hanson Archives. Peace out, baby.
Hello, Austin, Texas, and we are back at a beautiful scenic view here in Austin. And we're not going to tell you where we're at here, but we're just out here on a nice evening, beautiful summer evening, closing in our dawn. Dawn as the sun just set over here. And what we're doing here, folks, is we're giving you a perfect example of how I believe the slave masters have us all, have many people snowed under. If you look out here, folks, you will see the skyline here of all the different buildings of downtown Austin. Now keep in mind, going way back, the Tower of Babel for one, for starters. There was huge towers constructed for the emperors of that day to enslave the people and create a one-world system of that time. Now also, as you move along in history, you had Rome, and you had, actually before that, before Rome, you had Egypt. And Egypt was a tremendous facility built upon the backs of the slaves. The Israelites were enslaved for 400 years in Egypt. And if you notice, it's one thing about Egypt, they had huge skyscrapers, pyramids, sphinxes, whatever that's called. They had huge architectural structures in Egypt and in Rome. Keep in mind, they also had the Roman gladiator events. They had the Colosseums, huge towers. The emperors ruled over the slaves in those days. Folks, just because things look pretty nowadays, let me invite you to look at Rome Revisited. This is it, folks. A city financed by a debt usury money system, international banking cartel, financing this, what appears to be a beautiful skyline here in Austin, Texas. People watching the Jeff Davis Show right now, we welcome you, we invite you to see the modern day Rome Revisited. God bless y'all.
Four and a half years ago, I started my Access show after running for U.S. Congress a couple of different times. And I began talking about things like the UN taking over our parks and law enforcement busting into people's homes with ski masks. Various different things, the Bosnian situation where I predicted on another television program that our forces would not be back in a year and that this thing could possibly accelerate. There's many different things that if you look at the things that we talked about on our program 4.5 years ago, that many people at that time dismissed, this is now becoming a reality. In fact, some of the PBS shows and whatnot are now admitting that a lot of this is true. Of course, it's presented in a way that is kind of a whitewash. For example, these IRS committee hearings that took place. It's basically a whitewash because the IRS has received a lot of heat. And we had a speaker here talking about that earlier. And what the Congress does in the Senate, they bring in, once it gets to a certain level, whether it be the Waco issue, the Ruby Ridge issue, Vince Foster, different issues where they take the investigation and run with it. What they do is they bring information up to the point and then dismiss it. So we see this, we're seeing this at our treasonous house level. But the thing is that many of the activities that we've been talking about on our show the last 4.5 years is starting to unfold, and they're starting to admit these things. Which leads me to what I really want to talk about. And I can say, since we're amongst friends here today, I want to talk to you, mention who I believe the real enemy is in all of this. Of course, the international banking cartel, runs the international currency markets, and they basically control the system. Anybody with any sense knows that. But who I believe, the more I think about it, and the older I get, the more different things that affect my life, I'm beginning to see something like Terry might say, and that is I believe that the enemy is the people that are involved that are allowing this to continue to take place. For example, you've all seen our people. They drive around in their Mercedes-Benz with their golden chains. They go into their churches and they do a little bit of choir singing and some hip shaking. This kind of foolishness going on. This is what they're doing. And while all of this is going on, they're losing their rights. They're losing their land. They're losing their property. In fact, we have on our show tomorrow, we're going to be showing a case where an individual has just received a letter from the Travis County Tax Office. It's a $100,000 property that's paid off, and the gist of the letter is that if you owe like $800 some, and if you don't attempt to pay or get a hold of us by September the 30th, we're going to file a lien and take your property. So this is what's happening. This is what's happening all around America. This is not freedom. This is not real liberty. You actually don't own your home when you're caught up in a situation, an environment like this. Unfortunately, though, again, many people they're still not they're not receptive as to what's happening. They're partaking in foolishness, folly, and they're not actually watching what's happening. So I believe if you really start to look at the situation, I think more than anything you have to blame much of the people in this country, because they have allowed this. They continue to go to tyrants and trust in them to provide services. As Wes said, now comes with a price. You now have to give up something, a fingerprint or something, to even receive these so-called services. And the people are continuing to allow this to happen. If you look at just various different things that like for example, the media is feeding them. Let's face it, folks, the network media largely is nothing more than propagandists or journalists. Propagandists masquerading as journalists. That's what they are. Propagandists masquerading as journalists. And many of the people still believe and swallow what the network media is feeding them. We did a show last week, and we talked about shots and how dangerous the track record of government-mandated shots. They created the swine flu epidemic back in the 50s and 60s. If you look at the Gulf War illness, there's evidence to suggest that many of our veterans were submitted to different types of poison and whatnot. And also we talked about that. We talked about the need to go into a credit debit system. And We talked about that. We talked about the ski mask. We talked about how law enforcement was abusing people, taking people's rights. And on the next day, on one of the local news medias,
Where News Hour?
they had countered, or I'm not suggesting that they're watching our show and countering everything we say, because I have no evidence of that. But the fact is, on their news hour, they almost step by step talked about the same issues we had the night before, but they presented it in a different way. That this is okay that we have the county health department come out and take people's property. It was okay, you know, you need to get all your shots squared away for your kids. It's just like, it's literally just a constant brainwashing of the American public, and many people just flat out don't want to accept it. So I look at, like I said, kind of like how Terry would look at it, more and more that I understand this thing. You know, sure, we can understand, we can talk about, you know, the elite and faraway places, and I think we should do that, because they do control the system, and they know how to control civilizations, and they're experts at doing it. However, what it really boils down to is that the American people are allowing this to continue to go on. And I think if we need to start looking as far as just things that they're involved in. I mean, they're loading up the sports stadiums, they're loading up these phony churches, and that's what they are. Many of the organized religion establishments are phony, and it needs to be exposed as such. You know, the ones with the, got the big steeples on top of them. Organized religion is definitely part of this conspiracy and how the internationalists are controlling people's minds on a spiritual basis. No question about it. However, like I said, the people continue to, we talked about Monday some issues, and I think this is very important to understand because many people forget what they're being fed. However, if you look at over the last couple of years, some of the major issues that our media has fed us, and then you compare that to what significance that is to our lives. And for, you know, just a few examples, this Bobbitt case. If you go and watch my show, you know, Monday, you heard me say this. But this Bobbitt situation, apparently this woman cut off her husband's private parts. This was national news, and it just went on for weeks and weeks. You got the Tanya Harding deal situation, the ice skater. You've got OJ. Now you've got this Marv Albert thing. It's just a continuous repetition of absolute pointless issues that don't affect us being violated, giving our sovereignty over to the United Nations or the World Trade Organization. These are complete diversions, but unfortunately, too many of the people continue to swallow this stuff. So, I want to just mention a couple of things. First off, I appreciate Wes. I know he's trying to make these seminars happen. I also want to mention to you that on February 22nd, folks, you know, those wicked Branch Davidians that everybody's been told about, and those devils. You know, the first day it was molesting kids. The second day it was they had guns in there. The third day they had amphetamine labs. On the fourth day they had to find some way in Waco, Texas, to get the Bible people against them. So guess what happened on the fourth day? Koresh said he was Jesus. This was the ultimate diversion to get people just roaring mad and mad at these people. But let me tell you something, folks. I know many of the Branch Davidians. I'm friends with many of them. And I want to encourage that on February 22nd, we stack this place in here and we show as many people as we can just exactly who these Branch Davidians are. Because it's very important to understand how they've been demonized, how they were violated, how they've had their home burned down. Many of their family members were murdered. This is the 5th year anniversary coming up here on Waco. And it's very special to my heart because, like I said, I know many of these people, and I'm friends with many of them. And these people, as far as I'm concerned, had a terrible injustice done to them. I also want to mention that any of you Tex Mars listeners, I recently did an interview on a couple of different shows for Tex on International Shortwave, which will be playing in October, November time frame. We're looking to get some stories written in some alternative press nationally. So we are taking our show, or attempting to take our show, with the current problems that are going on down there to a much higher level now. And these seminars could be a very big part of that. So, again, I want to thank Wes for doing this. I want to thank you all for being here. And remember, folks, that one piece of wisdom that I think that I could share with all of you before I close up here. And that is, the world right now is entirely a lie. It doesn't matter whether it's political, economic, spiritual, through the organized religion. On every front, the world is a lie. And if we're going to defeat this beast that we're up against, we have to say to ourselves that we have to refuse to participate in the lie. So when we're out talking to our friends, and they might say, "Oh, you're part of that conspiracy thing. You know, they've been programmed to say this." Just refuse to accept the lie and refuse to participate in it. I've chosen to do that, and that's what we need. We need more people. We need everybody that understands what we're up against to just simply say that we are not going to participate in the lie. And if we all did that, then I believe we can beat this monster that we're up against. But with that, I do, once again, I appreciate the opportunity here, and God bless you. Appreciate it.
Okay, folks, here we are again, the Jeff Davis Show on tour down here in Austin, and we're now at a historic scene here in Austin, the skyline of Austin, Texas, on this beautiful evening. And you can see the skyscrapers and the skyline through there. And let's just go back in history a little bit of some of the origins of these things. First off, one of the main obelisks that was in Egypt is now sitting at St. Peter's Square in Rome. An obelisk, you know, the old Nimrod's sun god thing. You see similar references to this in today's architecture. The UT Tower over here, for one. Look at how it shoots up into the air. Look at the skyline. Now, if you study Egypt and Rome, you know that the emperors of those days had huge skylines, had huge pyramids, huge structures built on the backs of the slaves of those days. In Egypt, it was the Israelites who were enslaved in Egypt for 400 years, of course, till Moses came. In Rome, they had similar type buildings and infrastructure, huge pyramids, huge structures built on the backs of the slaves, domes for their gladiator sports, the Colosseums. And this is a historic event of making everything look pretty for the slaves who are doing the financing. Most of these buildings, as you look at here, folks, are, of course, paid for by bank loans, probably ultimately going through the Federal Reserve Bank. But see how everything looks all pretty out there for you through the skyline. If you study Rome and you study Egypt and some of these other historical cities,
and nations, you will see similar type occurrences, and that being the fact that there were huge structures built on the backs of the slaves, financed by the emperors, or in this or modern days system of international finance. And they give us this and make things look all pretty, at the same time destroying a nation and putting the nation under a sea of debt. But they give us this to make us look good and feel real pretty. This, my friends, I want the viewers of the Jeff Davis program tonight to witness Rome Revisited. God bless you, Austin. Come on, Lefty. Hi, baby. Toby.
I love Mike Hanson Archives.
Come on, anybody want to come up here? All right, that's it. All right, who wants to lead it? Let Gene go. Go ahead. Yes, sir. Here's
All right.
Yell it out.
God bless the Republic. Death to the New World Order.